Now we're just going to pick up from where we left off yesterday, as this assassination is maybe the most difficult time in American history. We have just fought a civil war with over 600,000 men dead. The war finally comes to an end, and an assassin's going to kill the sitting president. Now, this conspiracy gets much wider than just Lincoln himself. Lincoln is the only person in the much bigger conspiracy that's actually going to die. Now, when I saw you guys yesterday, we just barely got a chance to talk about the beginning of this. John Wilkes Booth has been a Southern sympathizer for years. He has openly hated Lincoln. He says he will not end the South. The South will rise again. And what Booth believes is he is going to, in one night, metaphorically decapitate the federal government. He has plans for Lincoln, Lincoln's Vice President Andrew Johnson, and the Secretary of State Seward. Now, let's first talk about John Wilkes Booth. What was his profession? Actor. An actor. But he's not just any actor. He's one of the most famous actors in the country. His family is actors. Everyone knows who he is. He is at Ford's Theater often. He's there so often he has his mail sent there. When he is walking into the theater, there's a crowd of people waiting for the play. And here's John Wilkes Booth walking through the crowd with his gun in his coat pocket, and people start saying, "It's John Wilkes Booth. He's the most famous actor in America." He walks up the stairs to the presidential balcony to go assassinate the president, and hear the people at Ford's Theater beneath him saying, "There he goes." John Wilkes Booth will wave to the crowd. When he gets to the presidential booth, there is supposed to be one armed guard there. One who is at best terrible at his job. Now, before I explain this one armed guard, I want to tell you, today, in the next 24 hours, we're going to spend I say right about because it depends on a few different factors. We're going to spend about $2.5 million protecting the president just today. Over the year, it's going to be about $800 million to protect the president. During this time, one local Washington, D.C. cop is in charge of protecting the president. This one cop, like I say, at best, bad at his job. He'd been arrested multiple times in uniform for being drunk on the job. Got arrested for that 3 times. And visiting a prostitute 4 times in uniform, on duty. And he gets the call to protect the president. About halfway through the play, this one DC cop gets bored and leaves and goes to the bar. His one job was to protect the president, and he's not there. Booth climbs the stairs. The only thing separating him and the president is just a wooden door with a small peephole in it. He can look at the president and wait for the right time to pull the trigger. Now, Booth knows this play. He's performed this play. He waits for the one moment of uproarious laughter. He slowly opens the door to the presidential balcony, pulls out his revolver, puts it to the back of the president's head, and pulls the trigger. He shoots the president with an enormous lead ball. It's about that big. It's huge. It lodges in the president's skull, but doesn't kill him instantly. He's going to survive for a few more hours. Now, we're going to talk about what happens when the president is still alive, but just clinging to life a little bit later on. When Booth shoots the president and the president's wife screams, everyone looks up at the presidential balcony and they say, "It's John Wilkes Booth. It must be part of the play." From here, Booth will climb up to the top of the presidential balcony. He leaps from the president's balcony onto the stage below. Now, I gotta tell you, this is what Ford's Theater looks like today. There is still Lincoln's presidential balcony kept exactly the same way as it was that night. You can see Lincoln's blood in the presidential balcony. This is probably about, you gotta say give or take, I'd say it's probably about 15-foot drop, maybe a little bit more, from the presidential balcony to the stage below. Booth is going to leap from the presidential balcony, land on stage, and yells his famous quote. He says, "Sex semper tyrannis, death always to tyrants." Now, Booth's going to have help in this conspiracy. Booth is going to stumble off the stage into the back of the room, and he's going to leave with his co-conspirator on horseback with a horse waiting for Booth. But Booth has another problem. He broke his leg. He breaks his leg on this 15-foot drop from the balcony to the stage below. He's in a great deal of pain, but he's got to get out of D.C., and he's got to get out right now. He knows what he's done is going to create a massive manhunt. But here's where Booth really goes wrong. He believes in his heart of hearts, if he can just get out of D.C., if he can get to Virginia, a southern state, that he'll be seen as a hero, the man who killed Lincoln the tyrant. He just has to get out of D.C. as fast as he can. He and his co-conspirator will ride to one bridge over the Potomac River, out of D.C. and into Virginia. He arrives, and there's one soldier there. This is right about 10:30 at night, and the soldier tells him, "The bridge is closed." He holds up his lantern. He says, "You're John Wilkes Booth. I'll make an exception for you." Lifts open the gates as Booth and his co-conspirator escape D.C. and get into Virginia. He rides south with the idea that he is going to be treated as a hero. The first place he arrives is a Southern sympathizer. But you have to understand the Southerners. They love pomp, they love circumstance, they love pageantry, and they love the rules. We're going to see Booth and his co-conspirator arrive at this one man's house, and he says, "Sir, I do believe we have killed the president." Someone he assumed would welcome him with open arms says, "How dare you? This is not how gentlemen fight wars." This is one of several places where Booth thought he'd be safe, turns his back on it. He says, "You can spend the night here, but you will not spend the night in my home." The biggest manhunt in American history, save one big example, is going to be on. We have Booth on the run, and everyone knows he did it. Posters will be printed up offering a $100,000 reward for any information that leads to the kill or capture of John Wilkes Booth. Now, just to kind of give you a comparison, quick math. That's $100,000 in 1865 dollars. Today, that'd be about $4.5 million. Oh, it gets better. Those posters that were printed out, there are today known to be 2 left. There might be more, but 2 are known. One's in pretty rough shape, one's in all but pristine shape. Someone found one of these posters in his basement and put it up for auction. Let me think, this was about 4 or 5 years ago. The poster sold for about $6 million. So my advice to you, go check your basements. If you find it, bring it to me. I'll hold it for safekeeping. And I'll totally sell it and move to the Bahamas. Now, the manhunt is on for Booth and his co-conspirator. All these Southerners that he thought would give him safe haven are turning their backs on him. For 12 days, Booth is on the run. He is sleeping in the swamps of Virginia with some mild assistance. There are some other conspirators, people, I can't really call them conspirators, Booth sympathizers, that would bring him newspapers, that would bring him small amounts of food. He is living very difficultly as everyone in the South is turning their backs on him, saying, that's how a coward fights war. For 12 days he's on the run. He's going to go to another farmhouse that he thinks will give him safe haven. He gets there and the owner says, I know who you are and I know what you've done. You are no gentleman. But I'm not going to let you freeze in the night. He tells Booth and the co-conspirator, you're not sleeping in my house, but you can sleep in the barn. Here's where things get a little murky. It's possible that this person turned him in, that he alerted the local authorities and Union troops to his whereabouts. Now, he swears up and down he didn't do that. So maybe these Union troops that find Booth and his co-conspirator are just the luckiest people in the country. It's possible. These troops surround this barn and say, John Wilkes Booth, we know you're in there. Surrender and come out. Booth simply responds, never. His co-conspirator says, I want to surrender. I want to come out. I want this to be over. Booth points his weapon at him and says, make one move to the door, I'll kill you myself. He's in a rough spot. This stalemate goes on for a little while, and these troops finally say, either come out or we're setting the barn on fire. What do you think Booth says? Set the barn on fire, I'm not coming out. You got it. They set the barn ablaze. The fire is going up the walls. Here's his co-conspirator saying, I want to get out. I want to surrender. For whatever reason, Booth has a change of heart. He yells out to these Union soldiers, there's a man in here who wants to surrender. He's coming out. I'm not. His co-conspirator will get out of the barn. These Union troops are going to grab him. And Booth starts firing at the Union troops. Now I should ask, if you're one of these troops and Booth starts firing at the barn, what do?
Fire back.
Fire back. I don't know if this is the best shot ever or the luckiest shot ever. One of these Union troops pulls the trigger and shoots Booth through the neck, severing his spinal cord. Booth is alive, but he's now paralyzed from the neck down. Yes, James?